It began like any other morning. The sun broke through the hazy clouds over Brookstone High, casting a soft golden hue on the cracked pavement and aging brick walls. Students buzzed through the front gates, some half asleep, others laughing over inside jokes. 13-year-old Aaliyah Carter, tall for her age, stepped out of her mother's car with a backpack slung low, and her braids freshly done, long, glossy, adorned with gold beads that clicked softly as she moved. Her mother, Dana, waved goodbye, unaware this would be the last normal school day for a long time. Aaliyah strolled into the hallway, head high, unaware of the eyes narrowing at the sight of her braids. Minutes later, a voice boomed from the main office. "Aaliyah Carter, report immediately." Confused, she walked in, only to face the principal, Mr. Halford, a gray-haired man with tired eyes and a hard mouth. "Your hairstyle violates the school's dress code," he said. Aaliyah blinked, stunned. "It's just braids." He didn't flinch. "You're suspended for non-compliance." Her world cracked open. The hallway, once loud with laughter and locker slams, fell into a strange hush. Word spread fast. Aaliyah was suspended. Teachers leaned into each other, murmuring behind coffee mugs. Students stared. One girl whispered, "Just for braids." Another replied, "She looks amazing, though." Aaliyah stood still, feeling the weight of every stare, her slip crumpling slightly in her grip. The walls closed in. Just then, her best friend Navia rushed to her side, eyes wide with disbelief. "Are you okay? What happened?" Aaliyah's voice was low. He said, "I broke the rules." Navia scanned her hair, her face tightening. "That's not a rule, that's control." As teachers walked by, pretending not to see, Aaliyah turned and slowly walked to the exit doors. Her mother was still nearby. The bell rang, but it felt distant, like another world had opened just for her, one of fear, judgment, and confusion. Dana Carter paced the living room, phone clutched tightly to her ear, voice sharp. She was suspended for what? Hair? Aaliyah sat on the couch, eyes glassy, her fingers tugging gently at her beads. The house was quiet except for the rise and fall of Dana's fury. "You need to explain to me how a black girl wearing braids is a disruption," Dana said, her voice cracking. The school secretary gave a rehearsed response. "It's part of the uniform policy." Dana hung up without another word. She turned, kneeling beside her daughter. "Baby, you did nothing wrong." Aaliyah didn't look up. "I liked how I looked." Dana brushed a braid from her daughter's cheek. "You still look beautiful." That night the house was heavy with silence. The TV stayed off. Dana emailed the school board. "We're not letting this go," she whispered aloud, even though Aaliyah had already gone to bed. The next morning, Dana sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the school's policy PDF'd out. Her eyes narrowed. No mention of braids, only vague language, disruptive hairstyles. She slammed the laptop shut. "They're hiding behind words." She called a friend who worked at another school across town. "Do y'all ban braids?" The friend laughed bitterly. "We'd lose half our school." Dana hung up, resolve hardening. She printed out the code, highlighted inconsistencies, and packed her purse. "Let's go," she told Aaliyah. At the district office, the receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an appointment?" Dana said firmly, "I'm not leaving until I speak with someone about what happened to my daughter." Behind her, Aaliyah stood still, arms crossed, braids falling proudly over her shoulders. Later that evening, Dana pulled out a photo album and placed it in front of Aaliyah. "This was your great-grandmother," she said, pointing to a black and white picture. "She wore those same braids when she marched in Selma." Aaliyah traced the woman's hair with her finger. "Really?" Dana nodded. "Braids are more than a style. They're strength. They're story. You carry every woman before you in those strands." Aaliyah smiled faintly, a tear gliding down her cheek. "So, he didn't just suspend me for my hair," Dana said softly. "No, baby, he tried to silence your history." Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the roots grew deeper. Dana sat across from Principal Halford, her jaw tight, her breath shallow. The walls of his office seemed even colder than before. "I want to understand," she said slowly, "how my daughter's hair is more disruptive than fights in the cafeteria or kids vaping in the bathrooms." Halford didn't blink. "It's about consistency and discipline. We enforce the policy equally." Dana's voice sharpened. "Show me where it says braids are banned." He handed her a printed sheet, hairstyles that cause distraction or interfere with learning. Dana scanned it. "That's vague by design." Halford leaned back, lacing his fingers. "If we allow one exception, we have to allow all." Dana stood, her body trembling, not with fear, but with fury. "You're not maintaining order. You're maintaining comfort for people who see culture as chaos." She looked him square in the eye. "This isn't over." Dana paced the kitchen with the policy sheet in one hand and a red pen in the other. The words, distracting, unprofessional, non-traditional, were all circled. "It's coded language," she muttered. "Meant to look neutral, but aimed like a weapon." She took a photo of the document and sent it to her sister in Atlanta who taught school. "They'd never write braids, that'd be too obvious," came the text reply. Dana posted it in a parent group chat. "Anyone else been told their child's hair broke the rules?" Minutes passed. Then replies began flooding in. "Yes, twice. Only my daughter, not her white friend." Dana's hand tightened around her phone. A pattern was forming, one that went deeper than her daughter. This wasn't about discipline. This was about dignity. And Dana knew now. This fight was bigger than one suspension. That night, Dana sat at the computer, eyes straining under the glow of the monitor. She combed through the district website, the full dress code, board meeting minutes, even archived student handbooks. Inconsistencies leapt off the screen. No uniform enforcement, no clear definitions. Some schools banned hoodies. Others didn't. Hair rules were vague at best. She started a document, logging every contradictory phrase. "There's no policy," she whispered. "Just preferences dressed up like law." She clicked deeper and found something startling. In the past 5 years, 78% of appearance-related suspensions had been issued to black students, who made up only 22% of the student body. Dana leaned back, staring at the numbers. "They've been doing this for years." She saved the file. Her hands trembled as she whispered, "They're not ready for what's coming." Dana sat across from 2 other parents at a quiet coffee shop. The space buzzed with conversation and clinking mugs, but their table felt isolated, anchored by urgency. "They did the same thing to my son," said a Latina mother. "They said his curls were too messy." The other, a black father, nodded. "My daughter was told her afro blocked the whiteboard." Dana clenched her jaw. "We've been silent too long." The father leaned in. "We've got enough for a complaint." Dana pulled out a file of screenshots, dates, policies. "I've been documenting everything." The waitress passed by, glancing at their papers. Dana didn't notice. "They made my daughter feel like her identity was a problem. We're going to make sure they know it's their policy that's the problem." The others nodded. The quiet was no longer silence. It was strategy. Later that evening, Dana sat on the couch, exhaustion pulling at her eyes. The TV played muted news in the background. Aaliyah rested beside her, reading quietly. Dana scrolled through her inbox, not expecting much, until she saw it. A reporter's name. The subject line, "Story on hair discrimination, available to talk." Dana froze. She clicked it open. "Saw your post. This needs to be told. Are you willing to go on record?" Dana looked at Aaliyah, who looked back, her face unsure. "Do you want to be public about this?" she asked softly. Aaliyah hesitated, then nodded slowly. "If it helps other girls, yeah." Dana exhaled. She clicked reply. "Yes, we'll talk." Somewhere between fear and hope, a new kind of courage took root. They weren't just reacting anymore. They were rising. The news story aired on a quiet Thursday evening. A local anchor sat straight-backed, voice carefully controlled, as images of Aaliyah's braids filled the screen. Controversy is growing at Brookstone High, where a black student was suspended over her hairstyle, raising questions about racial bias in school dress codes. Dana sat at the edge of the couch, heart racing. Aaliyah leaned into her mother, eyes wide. The segment showed footage of the school, shots of the policy, and blurred images from Dana's group chat. The school district declined to comment, the reporter said, but parents are demanding answers. Within minutes, Dana's phone buzzed. Friends, strangers, reporters. Twitter lit up. Hashtags formed. #Braids Sereno to breach. #Protect Black Girls. The silence they had fought against was broken. Aaliyah whispered, "That's me." Dana squeezed her hand. "Yes, and now they have to see you." By morning, the story had gone viral. Tweets surged, Instagram posts shared clips of the segment, and TikToks stitched her image into broader conversations on hair discrimination. Some praised Dana and Aaliyah for their courage. Others, more cruel, called them dramatic or playing the race card. Dana scrolled in silence, her face unreadable. "Don't read the comments," a friend texted. But she did. Everyone. The cruelest words stuck like splinters, but they didn't break her. Meanwhile, student DMs started coming in. "This happened to my sister too. Thank you for speaking up. I thought I was alone." Dana replied to each one, "You're not." Outside, a group of students gathered, some with braids, others with signs. Aaliyah's story had ignited something. No longer whispers in the hallway. Now the walls themselves were listening. That afternoon, the school board called an emergency meeting. The auditorium was packed. Parents, reporters, students, and teachers all pressed together under harsh fluorescent lights. Dana sat near the front with a folder in her lap. Aaliyah held her hand. The board president opened with stiff formality. "We will now hear concerns from the public." Dana stood. The room quieted. "Way." Her voice trembled at first, but quickly found its strength. "Your policies criminalize culture. You punish our children for existing as they are, and that ends now." Applause erupted. Others followed. Parents, former students, even a teacher who'd remained silent for years. One student held up a poster. "My hair, my right." The meeting stretched into the night. When Dana sat down, Aaliyah whispered, "You sounded like Grandma marching." Dana smiled through tears. "And now you are too." The next day, Brookstone High felt different. Students walked in silence, but with purpose. At least 20 girls wore braids that morning, styled in solidarity with Aaliyah. Some teachers paused mid-roll call, eyes scanning the sea of heads. The hallway buzzed with energy, not rebellion, but unity. Aaliyah entered slowly, unsure at first, until she saw Navia waiting by her locker. "You started a movement," Navia said, eyes glowing. "Now they can't pretend not to see." As the bell rang, several students unfurled small paper signs taped to their backs, "Not a distraction." The administration ordered them to take them off. Some did. Others didn't. Aaliyah sat in her first class, surrounded by braids, coils, curls. She no longer felt alone. Her hair hadn't changed, but the world around her had started to. That afternoon, Principal Halford issued detention slips to the students wearing protest signs. The move backfired. Phones recorded the confrontation, capturing the awkwardness, the disbelief, and the determination on the students' faces. "We're not doing anything wrong," one girl said. "We're just showing who we are." When a boy handed in his slip and said, "See you in detention," with dignity, the room erupted in claps. The video hit the internet within hours. Dana watched it that night, hand over her mouth. Aaliyah grinned. "They're not afraid anymore." Dana nodded. "Because you weren't." Halford's face was now public too, stern, unmoved, out of step with the students rising around him. The district had tried to keep this quiet. But now, the entire city was watching. Dana sat in her car outside the public records office, staring at the file folder in her lap. Inside were documents she'd requested on a hunch, formal complaints, staff evaluations, and disciplinary summaries tied to Principal Halford's tenure. Her hands trembled slightly as she flipped through the records. One entry caught her eye, a discrimination complaint from 6 years ago filed by a former teacher. The language felt familiar, appearance code inconsistently enforced, targeting Black and Latinx students. The complaint had been quietly closed with no formal investigation. Dana whispered, "So this isn't the first time." She took out her phone and began snapping photos. The past wasn't buried, it had just been ignored. She sat back, eyes burning, the weight of it all pressing in. They've been doing this, and no one stopped them. Later that day, Dana met with a former teacher, Eames sister, Talia Green, at a quiet park bench under gray skies. She was cautious at first, but her eyes betrayed years of frustration. "I warned them about Halford," Talia said. "He used policy like a weapon." Dana listened closely. "Why didn't anyone follow up on your complaint?" Talia laughed bitterly. "Because they protect the institution, not the kids. And definitely not the staff who speak up." She handed Dana a flash drive. "Everything I saved, screenshots, emails, I kept it all." Dana took it, stunned. "Why give it to me?" Talia looked out at the pond. "Because you're not afraid to speak out. I was, but maybe now it's time I stop being quiet." Wind rustled the trees. Two women, different pasts, same fight, sat in silence, understanding the stakes had just changed. That night, Dana sat at her kitchen table, eyes locked on her laptop screen. The flash drive was plugged in. Each folder opened a window into a pattern, student referrals that singled out kids with natural hair, emails suggesting certain hairstyles were unprofessional, even notes from staff meetings where teachers were encouraged to flag dress violations early. Dana's hands shook as she scrolled. It wasn't just Aaliyah. It wasn't just Brookstone. It was systemic, documented, deliberate. She copied everything to her drive. "You buried this," she whispered, "but we're digging it back up." She drafted an email to a civil rights group she'd found online. Subject: evidence of targeted disciplinary action. She hesitated for a moment, then clicked send. Somewhere in that digital trail, justice had a starting point. Dana walked into the district office lobby, holding a neatly organized binder. She had an appointment this time, with the school board president. He greeted her with a cautious smile, but she didn't waste time. "I'm here because your policy is a lie, and I have proof." She laid the binder on the conference table, printouts of old complaints, emails, screenshots. He skimmed through the pages, face tightening. "These are serious claims," he said. "And the district takes them seriously." Dana leaned forward. "Then prove it. Suspend Halford. Conduct an independent audit, or I go public, with names." The man stiffened. Dana didn't blink. "My daughter's not going to pay for your silence." The silence that followed was heavy, but this time, it was Halford on the defensive. Dana stood, nodded once, and walked out. Storm brewing in her wake. That night, Dana sat with Aaliyah on the back porch. The wind had picked up, stars hidden behind rolling clouds. "You scared?" Aaliyah asked. Dana looked out over the yacht. "Yes, but I'm more scared of doing nothing." Aaliyah leaned her head on her mom's shoulder. "I'm glad you didn't." They sat in silence, cicadas humming in the dark. "You know," Dana said, "when you stood in that hallway with your braids, you were doing more than just walking into school. You were walking into history." Aaliyah looked up. "I just didn't want to feel ashamed anymore." Dana kissed her forehead. "And you never should have." Behind them a porch light flickered. Ahead of them the future waited, uncertain, unpromised, but no longer untouched. They weren't finished fighting. But they weren't fighting alone anymore. The lawyer's office was quiet, professional, and heavy with purpose. Dana sat across from Alicia Monroe, a civil rights attorney with sharp eyes and a sharper voice. The binder of documents lay between them. Aaliyah flipped through each page, nodding slowly. "You've done your homework," she said. Dana exhaled, hands gripping her lap. "This can't keep happening." Aaliyah tapped a section on the complaint history. "This is textbook discriminatory enforcement, and we can build a case around it." Aaliyah, sitting beside her mom, glanced up. "Will it make a difference?" Aaliyah looked directly at her. "If we push hard enough, yes. But it won't be easy." Dana nodded. "Easy was yesterday. Today we fight." The office light buzzed softly overhead. Papers shifted as Aaliyah pulled out legal forms. The war wasn't just public anymore. It was official. And it had a name: Carter v. Brookstone Unified School District. The lawsuit was filed. The news broke like a thunderclap. Local stations ran the headline: "Mother and daughter sued district over hair-based discrimination." National outlets picked it up within hours. Dana's inbox flooded. Some messages were full of praise, others laced with hate. Why make this a race issue? Just follow the rules. But Dana had expected this. What she didn't expect was the sheer momentum. Civil rights groups issued statements of support. Students posted TikToks with the tag #CarterCase. Aaliyah's photo, her braids glistening, appeared on magazine blogs and advocacy pages. The media didn't just tell her story. They amplified it. Dana watched it all unfold from her living room. "They can't pretend it's just us anymore," she said aloud. Aaliyah looked up. "So, what now?" Dana answered without hesitation. "Now we keep going." The district responded vaguely. A polished statement read, "Brookstone Unified values diversity and is reviewing current policy to ensure fairness." Aaliyah scoffed as she read it aloud. "They're dodging." Dana folded her arms. "They're stalling." But Aaliyah smiled slightly. "Which means they're nervous." In the weeks that followed, small shifts appeared, dress code meetings reopened, staff retraining quietly began, and Principal Halford stopped appearing at school events. But no apology came. No admission of fault. Just whispers behind doors. Dana started attending every public hearing, every community town hall. "If they won't be transparent," she told the crowd, "well, force the light in." People clapped. The quiet mother from scene one was gone. In her place stood an advocate, armed with data, fire, and truth. As students began to organize, school officials tried to suppress them. A flyer campaign was shut down. A walkout was met with warnings. But the students weren't backing down. Aaliyah, once silent, now stood at the center. At lunch, she passed out bracelets with the words, "Culture is not a violation." Navia filmed a video. "We're not protesting to rebel. We're demanding respect." It went viral overnight. The administration tried to frame it as disruption. But teachers, quiet until now, began showing support. One wore a pin with Aaliyah's slogan. Another brought up implicit bias in a faculty meeting. The walls of silence were crumbling. Dana watched her daughter in awe. "You were born with a voice," she said one night, "but now the world's learning to hear it." That evening, Dana opened a letter addressed from the school board. Her fingers hesitated before unfolding it. The language was stiff, but there it was, effective immediately. Brookstone Unified will revise its appearance policies to prohibit discrimination based on natural hairstyles. No apology. No direct admission. But it was a step. Dana read it twice, then handed it to Aaliyah. "You did this," she whispered. Aaliyah blinked at the page. "We did." Outside, neighborhood kids biked past their house. Somewhere nearby, church bells rang. The world didn't change overnight, but it shifted, undeniably, because they demanded. Dana pulled her daughter close. "They tried to make you small. You showed them how powerful you are." The paper trembled slightly in Aaliyah's hands, but her voice was steady. "It's only the beginning." A week after the policy changed, Dana received a package on her porch, unmarked, no return address. Inside, a manila envelope stuffed with printed emails, internal memos, and meeting notes. She scanned the first page, heart pounding. It was a confidential email thread between administrators, dated months before Aaliyah's suspension. One line stood out: braided styles are becoming a distraction. Halford wants a stricter interpretation of the code. Dana stared at it, disbelief turning into clarity. It wasn't about one girl. It had been a quiet campaign. A footnote in the margins of policy, carried out in whispers and paper trails. Dana looked through more. Teachers raising concerns, then being ignored. Someone inside leaked this, she murmured. Whoever it was, they weren't just validating her fight. They were handing her ammunition. The system had cracks. And now, light was pouring in. Inside Alicia's law office, the air was electric. Dana laid the leaked documents on the table while Alicia read each page with slow, deliberate care. This is gold, she said, voice barely above a whisper. They were crafting policy to target students, and now we can prove intent. Dana exhaled. It felt like gaslighting before. Now I know I wasn't crazy. Alicia immediately began scanning the pages into her system. This changes everything. Not just our case, but theirs. These emails suggest deliberate discrimination. We can go beyond local reform now. She looked at Dana squarely. We can take this federal. Dana stared back, the magnitude hitting her. This fight, once personal, was now a spark threatening a much larger flame. And she was ready. Then let's light it up. As Alicia prepared the legal escalation, the documents were leaked to the media. A well-known education journalist broke the story. Leaked memos reveal targeted appearance enforcement at Brookstone District. The headline blazed across social platforms, followed by screenshots of the actual emails. Hashtags reignited. Public reaction was swift and furious. Advocacy groups rallied. Civil rights attorneys began referencing the case as precedent in their own filings. Meanwhile, inside the district, panic bloomed. Board members scrambled, emergency meetings were called, and Principal Halford was placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. Pending? Dana scoffed, watching the press conference. That man should have been gone the minute we proved it. But Alicia just nodded. Let them squirm. We're not done yet. For the first time, the system wasn't ignoring them. It was reacting. The school board convened for a closed-door session, but the people wouldn't stay silent. Protesters gathered outside, students, parents, teachers, even alumni, chanting, holding signs, and demanding transparency. Dana stood among them, Aaliyah by her side. Her voice, once confined to her living room, now echoed over loudspeakers. We're not here because of one mistake. We're here because of years of silent harm. And we're done being silent. Inside, through the glass walls, board members sat stiffly. They heard every word. And outside, the crowd swelled. Aaliyah took the mic. Her hands shook, but her voice didn't. I didn't break a rule. I broke their comfort, and I want to apologize for that. The cheers rang out, filling the street. The walls weren't just cracking now. They were falling. Behind the scenes, pressure from media, legal teams, and public protests reached critical mass. An emergency press release was issued. The superintendent's voice trembled slightly as he read. Effective immediately, Principal Halford's employment is terminated. A full review of disciplinary policies will begin with external oversight. Dana received the news via text, before it even hit the airwaves. She stared at the screen, letting the weight settle. It's done, she said. But Aaliyah shook her head. No, he's done. We're still going. Dana nodded, pride swelling through the ache. They'd won a battle, but the war was bigger. This wasn't about punishing a man. It was about protecting every child who came after. And as the press conference played out on the TV, Dana opened her laptop again. Now let's talk next steps. A month later, Aaliyah returned to Brookstone High, not quietly, but confidently. The air was different now. The halls, still lined with lockers and old posters, buzzed with a new awareness. As she stepped through the front doors, students looked up, not in judgment, but in recognition. Aaliyah wore her braids just as before, gold beads shining beneath the overhead lights. She moved slowly, deliberately. Some students nodded. Others smiled. A teacher touched her shoulder gently and whispered, "Welcome back." No detentions. No calls to the office. Just a girl walking into school like she belonged. Because she always had. Dana waited by the exit doors, watching through the glass. Her daughter had returned not just to a school, but to a space that had tried to reject her. And this time the walls couldn't deny her presence. She'd made history just by walking in. As Aaliyah walked to her locker, she noticed something taped along the hallway. Photos of black students past and present, each with different hairstyles, braids, curls, locks, afro. Above them, a banner read, "Heritage is not a distraction." Navia ran up, out of breath. "You saw it?" she asked. "Emmons, Sanders and the Diversity Club put it up last night." Aaliyah looked at the faces, some friends, some older students she didn't even know, and felt something stir in her chest. "It's beautiful," she said. Another student passed by, fist bumping her without a word. The hallway wasn't just a hallway anymore. It was a gallery of pride, resistance, and identity. For the first time, Aaliyah didn't feel watched. She felt seen. And that difference, that subtle, crucial shift, meant everything. That weekend, Dana stood before the state legislature, wearing a charcoal blazer and her mother's earrings. Lawmakers listened as she spoke. Hair has been used as a reason to exclude, punish, and silence. But it's never been the problem. The problem is the system that labels it as one. Behind her, Aaliyah sat beside activists and students wearing pins that read #Carter case. Dana continued, unwavering. "We're asking you to support the Crown Act, to ensure this never happens to another child again." Murmurs swept the room. Cameras flashed. When she stepped down, a representative leaned over and said, "You may have just changed the law." Dana didn't smile. Not yet. She looked at Aaliyah and saw her younger self, her mother, her grandmother, every woman who had ever been told to shrink. "We didn't come this far to stop now," she whispered. Outside the courthouse, media crews crowded around. Reporters shouted questions. But Aaliyah didn't stop to answer. She walked past the cameras with calm grace, her braids swaying gently in the breeze. Dana stayed close, one hand on her shoulder. Behind them, the crowd erupted in cheers. The legislation had passed. The Crown Act would now be enforced statewide. "How does it feel?" one reporter asked. Aaliyah paused just once, looked directly at the lens and said, "It feels like justice didn't win. We made it win." Then she turned away. Flashbulbs popped, but she didn't flinch. She didn't owe anyone a performance. Not anymore. That moment belonged to her, to the silence she shattered, to the pride she reclaimed. And as she stepped off the courthouse steps, it felt less like an ending, and more like a beginning. Back home, Aaliyah stood in front of her bedroom mirror, running her fingers over her braids. Not fixing them, not adjusting, just holding them, gently, like something sacred. Her room was quiet now, no noise, no audience. Just her reflection, steady and strong. On her desk lay school books, flyers, news clippings, and a thank you note from a stranger. "Because of you, my daughter wears her curls with pride." Aaliyah looked at herself, really looked, then whispered, "You did good." From the doorway, Dana watched in silence. Her daughter had walked through fire, and never once let it consume her. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Aaliyah. No words, no speeches, just a long, fierce hug. Outside, the wind picked up. Inside, peace settled. The battle had changed them, but it hadn't broken them.